It's Messi! It is the cleanest of clean finishes from the best on the planet.
It's time for the biggest sports stories.
Liverpool, the champions of Europe, are top of the world.
The biggest interviews.
That such a great spectacle is ruined by such thuggish behavior.
And all the analysis right here.
He's the one player that has the arrogance to think that he can play in any stadium in the world and any pitch in the world in front of any player in the world and take them on.
Every weekday, it's my sport, it's your sport. It's ZiFM Sport. Let's join the team for the biggest show in the world of sport on ZiFM Stereo. My station, your station.
Yo, welcome to it. This is ZiFM Sport on a Thursday, Throwback Thursday, the lockdown edition. My name is Sean Tafirenyika. I'm the producer of ZiFM Sport, and you know how we do every Thursday. We keep it short, sharp, and sweet as we take you closer to your sports stars, powered by DSTV. And tonight, remember the conversation we had on Tuesday about the greatest Olympians of all time? Well, tonight we've got one of them. And in fact, we've got the most decorated Olympian in history. Care to guess who it is?
Hi, this is Benjamin Locke. I'm on the Zimbabwe Davis Cup team, and you're listening to ZiFM Sport.
Now, having won 28 medals, Michael Phelps is the most decorated Olympian in history. He has trained and competed at the highest levels of elite swimming and has broken world records and forged a lifelong career unrivaled by any other. Now, even after he announced his retirement in 2012, he made a valiant comeback at the 2016 Rio Olympics, where he won 5 more medals to bring up his remarkable tally to 28 medals. Now tonight we're gonna hear from Michael Phelps, who spoke to motivational speaker Tony Robbins. He's gonna talk about how he came to dominate the sport of swimming and also the setbacks that he faced along the way.
I think the biggest thing is I'm comfortable with who I am. You know, I think for so long I really just looked at myself as kind of this kid that was a talented swimmer that just went up and down the pool, and I didn't really know who I was as a person, and I was to the point in my life where I didn't like who I saw in the mirror, and I, you know, super ADD, so I'm always bouncing off the wall and have a ton of energy and kind of can't get me to shut up from time. So I always thought people were judging me and looking at me differently. And finally, after my most recent downfall in 2014, I just decided that the world is going to show, I'm going to show the world who Michael Phelps is. And I wasn't going to care. This is me, and if you didn't like it, it's not my problem. I'm going to be me, and you know, I think that was the coolest part for me, especially in my career, and now moving past my career into welcoming our second child 7 weeks ago.
Congratulations. That's awesome. That's beautiful.
Into this world.
Son or daughter?
2 boys.
2 boys.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
7-week-old Beckett, and then Boomer is going to be almost 2.
That's wonderful. How has having a child changed your life?
I learned a lot of patience. A lot of patience. And for number 2, it's a lot different than number 1 for me, because I wasn't there for the first 3 months, really, of Boomer's life. Like, I was in and out. So I didn't really experience the no sleep and this and that all comes along with it. So now that I'm retired, I get to experience all of this. And I think last week was probably the toughest week. I think I averaged about 4.5 hours every night. So it really tested me towards the end of the week, and my son was really pressing a lot of buttons. So it was a learning experience, but it was good, and it's been super fun. We've loved it. Absolutely
really
loved
beautiful.
it.
I love seeing the love with you and your wife, and seeing how she has stood by you all these times. You know, a lot of people bail in those moments, and you could just see that she loves you at a level that's extraordinary, and you deserve that. How much a role has she played in that comeback for you?
So Nicole and I have been, I guess this July will be 11 years that we've been on and off. We broke up after 08, back together before 12, broke up after 12, got back together before 16, and now I hope third time's a charm. But the coolest thing I think with our relationship is we've just been able to go through absolutely everything together. The good, the bad, the ugly, privately and publicly. And I think that's made us so much stronger. And also we've been able to grow with one another and just learn with each other how to communicate better. And now with 2 kids, just how to help each other. And it's been the coolest journey for me, just being able to grow with somebody that I love so much and that has played a huge, significant role in my life for a long time.
Well, let me take it back, if we could, to the very beginning. Your mom, we saw us put you in for safety purposes, and now you become the greatest athlete in the history of the Olympics in that area. Tell me something, like back in those days, were you a fish to water? Did they throw you in? Because everybody talks about things like, your 6'7" wingspan. You didn't have a 6'7" wingspan back then, and you still competed. When did you really take to the sport? What made you take to the sport? And at what stage did you say, this is going to be my world?
When I was 11 years old, I started swimming with my coach, who I swam with my whole career, named Bob Bowman, and he kind of sat down with me when I was 11 and said, I started swimming with him when I was 9, and then at 11 he sat down and was like, you can make the Olympic team. And I was like, cool, that would be awesome, why not? He's like, you could do it in 4 years. And I was like, okay, let's do it. So I stopped playing baseball, lacrosse, and soccer, focused on swimming because that's what I had wanted to do. My sister at that point was first in the nation and third in the world in '94 for swimming, and she was 13 or 14 or whatever, and that was her goal. And I had already seen her go to national teams and travel all over the world and see all these cool meets and places and experience all this. And I was like, I want to do that. I want to be a world record holder. I want to be an Olympic gold medalist. I want to be a professional athlete. That's what I want. And 4 years later, my coach took me there. I don't know what made me trust him right then and there. I actually, it's fun for me now because so many more stories come up through this process. And if I look back to that moment when I trusted him at 11, I think it was almost really, I was looking for somebody who had confidence in me. And like a father figure who had confidence in me. And he showed that. My father was very absent at that time in my life, and my coach stepped in and he just believed that I could do whatever I wanted. And for me, I was like, all right, cool. Let's do it. He would say jump and I would say how high at that point, so I still remember some of the sets that we did as a kid. And it's mind blowing to me now. And he just got me to that point, and I said, okay, well, what's next? And
why did you trust him?
I don't know. I really have no idea.
Because you've lived a life where it's hard to trust, right? A lot of times you've been taken advantage of. You've had people that are your friends. Sure. So the trust that you built with him, did it grow anywhere else?
I think the one real special thing about our relationship and why we were able to have the longevity is because we grew together. We had to grow together because we were spending so much time with one another. So, once we got, when I was 18 years old, we had some struggles because he still saw me as the 11-year-old kid that he once did. And I was like, look, this isn't going to fly. Either we're going to have to change this or I'm never swimming for you again. And we had a lot of those kind of head-butting moments, I guess you could call them. And we just grew together and we wanted to do absolutely everything we could to be the best that we possibly could. And I think that's really what started us brought us into basically from 2000 or 99 to 05, 99 to 06, basically straight without missing a single day, 365 days a year. And
please tell people about your training regimen.
During that time, we were averaging about 10 workouts a week, 7 days a week. We had doubles 3 days a week. And they were 2-hour sessions in the pool. And then we had hour and a half out of the pool 3 times a week, 4 times a week. But I'll share one story because we talked about it earlier. We would go to Colorado Springs to the United States Olympic Training Center, and we would train up there for 3 weeks, and we would spend basically all we did was eat, sleep, swim, and lift. That's all I did. And we would go from 5 to 7, 9 to 11, and 3 to 5 all in the pool, and then have a weight session afterwards. So we're having 4 workouts a day. So
incredible.
Over 24 days, we're probably working out with weights 75 times. Probably 75 workouts in 24 days. So at that point, it was kind of like I saw myself improving so much because we weren't taking a day off. And in the sport of swimming, if you miss one day, it takes you 2 days to get back to where you were. So why
is that?
Just because you lose kind of the feeling for water and your muscles kind of get out of rhythm a little bit.
So where did that drive come from? I know you wanted to, lots of people want. And an unbelievable drive that just you will not stop. You'll do 4 and 5 workouts, whatever it takes.
Well, the biggest thing was after going to my first Olympics in 2000 when I was 15, I decided to not take a break afterwards and kind of get right back into it, because it's the same thing that he was talking about.
Yeah.
I was upset with my performance. You know, I got 5th, and at 15, yeah, it's great, but I mean, let's be honest. I don't want to come back with a participation like ribbon. Like, I want to come back with real hardware. Like, I don't want this ribbon. So I was pissed about it. Like, that's just what I wanted. So I was like, all right, cool. So we got back in the water the next day. Everyone else took like a month or 2 off. And I remember the very first workout we did, as the meet's going on, Bob has WR written on the top of the workout. And I'm like, what is this? Like, I know what it means, but like, why are you writing it here? And he's like, because we're going to break a world record in 6 months. And I was like, all right.
Decide.
Yeah, let's do it. Cool. I'm in. 6 months later, first world record. 6 months after that, broke another one, won my first world championship. And he just started proving to me that he could get me to these certain places. And we just started pressing the envelope even more. We're like, all right, what do we want to do next? How big can we really take this?
Yeah.
And you know, I remember sitting with my agent when I was 15, 16 years old, and I just said, I want to do something that nobody else has ever done in the sport. I want to do something different. I don't want to be the second Mark Spitz. I want to be the first Michael Phelps. I want to do something nobody else has ever done.
That's awesome.
And that's honestly really just what drove me.
One of your competitors said you would never be able to do that.
Thorpe.
Tell us about Thorpe. And did that drive you?
Thorpe, and he knows. Him and I have spent so much time in the water and so much time competing against one another. And
for those who are not from Australia, you might
Ian Thorpe. Ian Thorpe's arguably one of the greatest swimmers in the world. Incredible competitor, great guy. And he said in 2008, he said it's impossible for somebody to win 8 gold medals. And I was like, all right, well, wait and see. But he actually said in 2016, going into 16, he said no one over the age of 30 can win an individual swimming Olympic gold. And I was like, all right. So I finally said something to him afterwards. I was like, dude, you just have no confidence in your boy? He goes, no, I know how your mind works. And I know how much that would give you to help you really kind of fight through it. And watching that 200 fly where the Japanese and the Hungarian were basically running me down. If we had one more meter, I wouldn't have won that race. So it was good. So it really did help push me to get there and to finish how I needed to.
How about when you win by 1/100th of a frickin' second, right? Like, what's going on in your mind there, and how do you do that? I mean, that isn't just skill. That's something in you that just won't be defeated, isn't it? What is it?
But I think it's like, if you look at the greats, especially in sports, they just know how to get it done at those moments. You know, like watching Sean getting ready for his third, I was like, all right, well, he's been here before. Like, you know, he knows what to do. It's kind of like he knows how to get into his head and just let happen what needs to happen. And that's how it was. You know, I got into that moment leading into that finish. And to be honest, I thought the half stroke cost me the race. I really thought it cost me the race. I was like, well, there goes a gold medal. And I hit the wall, and I needed that half stroke, because I would have done what Kavik did and kind of glide into the wall and almost act as like a speed bump. Because his hands were like this when he was coming into the wall, and his body was shaped in a U. So I hit it with so much force, moving directly forward, and hit the pad and triggered the pad 100th faster than he did.
100th of a second.
They had to go down to the 1000th to find that the winner of the race. So I mean, tell me what you're feeling when you do that and you realize you win by 1/100th of a second. I knew I was going to win 8.
You did.
I knew
the entire time. So you visualized it, you saw it, you felt it.
But that's like, for me, like, I've been doing this since I was probably 12, 13 years old, where I visualize how I want the race to go, how I don't want the race to go, and how the race could go. Just when you're there in that moment, you're prepared for anything that's around you. And say all those little small things end up adding together to make a massive difference. And the more you can kind of get into that rhythm, you just don't even have to think about it. It's just so natural, and it comes right to you. So that was something I think I was very fortunate to have a coach who taught me so many amazing things at such a young age that I was able to carry on and perfect almost, I guess, to a point throughout my career.
Little things are not little. Not when you're competing at the highest level. I mean, everything. Tell me, when tell me about 2012, because 2012 you said you're going to retire, you're done. You made it very clear you were done. Everybody thought you were done. Tell us what happened, because I know that was a low point, but part of the power of who you are is you made it through that, where you're literally questioning whether you want to live or not. Sure. Will you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So basically, after 2008, I kind of it really felt like it was a chore. Everything that I was doing was a chore, and I hated it. I couldn't wait until 2012 was over. I wanted to get through the Olympics. I wanted nothing to do with swimming. And going into like the 2011 World Championships, I kind of decided that I needed to start working because it was going to be kind of challenging for me to try to do what I wanted to do without any work. And you heard it in that interview that I did with Matt. I mean, I literally went a week or two without coming to practice, and I knew I had an interview with him, and I showed up that day. And he didn't know that I had been gone for this whole time. I just put on this great front that I was really good at doing. And I was like, I didn't care, Matt. I didn't want to be around the sport. I just wanted to finish. So for me, one of the races you saw is one of my least favorite races in my entire career. But it's also one of probably the most influential races in my career. Going into 2012, I wanted to win the 200 fly. It was one race I really wanted to win. And I went almost 3 years without watching that race because it really pissed me off. And because I knew I screwed it up by not preparing myself the best way that I knew how to give myself the chance and the right opportunity to win the race. So when I got second by a tenth, I was like, great, I'm done. See you later. Finished. And I went on my own way, and 6 months later I was 35, 40 pounds overweight and in a really bad place, and it just kept going deeper and deeper and deeper. And I got to the point where I decided that I wanted to come back, and in the beginning I really deeply wanted to come back, but I don't think I fully wanted to come back. I think I knew I wanted to, because I wanted another chance to be able to finish my career how I wanted to, and as you heard, hang my suit up exactly how I want. I don't want to have a what if 20 years down the road, and for me, going through that low point where I didn't want to be alive, I think really opened my eyes up to a lot. And
what was it? I know there was issues with your father that had been in you for some time, sure. But one of the reasons I really wanted you to share, I'm so grateful you are, is so many people get depressed and they feel humiliated, embarrassed, because they're a strong person. Right. You're about as strong as a human being can be. Right. What was it that made you get into that place, and what happened when you went through the Meadows and therapy that got you out of it so you got hungry again? I mean, and this wasn't the first time I had gone through a state of depression. I mean, I went through one after 2004, after 08, definitely after 12 and 14, and then... And what would be the cause? What would trigger you?
Honestly, I have a really hard time believing that the USOC and other NGBs can't support us coming off of such a high like the Olympic Games, because you work for 4 years to get to this point, and such a high mental, physical, emotionally draining experience, and you go through it, and then you come off of it and you're like, all right, cool, now what? You're almost lost, because you just have no idea where to go, and it pisses me off so much that the people who are in charge of our Olympic committee, in my opinion, I don't think they care. North of 75-80% of athletes that come out of Olympic Games go through some kind of depression. And for me, honestly, during those 3 days where I was sitting in my room didn't want to talk to anybody, didn't want to see anybody, wasn't eating, just sat there in solidarity. And, for me, it was almost like, I knew in my head I didn't want to be alive, but also I thought there was another way and another route that I could take instead of taking my own life. And I was like, might as well try to reach my hand out and ask for help. And I think that was the real first time that I felt comfortable asking for help, because I was so vulnerable and in such a dark place. And I think as athletes, and especially as Americans, I feel like we always have this chip on our shoulder. We're like, oh, we're this big macho person. Like, I can get through anything and just power through it and I'll be fine. But the dead honest truth is you can. And we all struggle every day in similar situations, and whether it's anxiety, depression, any other mental health disorder. And I think it's something that's real and that needs to be talked about more. And that's what something, is so exciting for me, to be able to open up and talk about my story, because, I'm alive because of it. And you know, I've been able to learn so much through this process and how to handle things differently. You know, I think also the first 2 days when I was in the Meadows, I basically didn't say a single word to a single human being, because I was like, why are they looking at me? Or I was like, why am I here? I was like, blah, blah, blah. All these thoughts were going through my head. And then I finally just said to myself, I was like, you know what? I'm going to be here for 45 days. I might as well just, you know, bite the bullet. Let's see what can happen and give it a chance. And then hopefully I can learn and grow from this experience. And, you know, ever since I went through there, that was probably the first time I had a real sit down, like face-to-face conversation with my father in probably 15 to 20 years. And it was actually in an environment that was controlled, where we couldn't like blow up and get hot-headed and just explode on each other. I think that was something that was so beneficial for where our relationship has grown since then. And
you were really surprised that he was willing to come.
I didn't want to invite him. So my therapist said, invite him to Family Week. And I was like, why? I was like, it's just going to be another letdown that he'll give me in my life. I was like, I don't want to be let down. I don't want that fear of rejection again. I was like, why would I even waste my time in doing this? And my therapist said to me, he said, if you do and he doesn't come, you at least know where he stands. And I was like, all right, that's true. I'll give it a chance. And he came, he showed up. I was very surprised. And we were able to get a lot off our chest that we had, you know, almost compartmentalized for 15, 20 years of, you know, just pain that we both suffered. And
a lot of misperceptions, it sounds like.
Of course.
Yeah. What was the biggest misperception you had about your father, and what do you think the biggest one he had about you that got cleared out? By the way, watching that, him poured me into tears, because seeing how much he really loved you, he wasn't able to show that before. It was just so moving.
I think one of the things that I learned the most is he did the best he could, and maybe he didn't know exactly what to do, and maybe he could have done things a little better. You know, we talked about things that frustrated me growing up, where, you know, like I remember when I first set my very first American record short course yards instead of Olympic size 50 meters. And it was in Baltimore, and he said he was going to come, and he never showed. And I brought that up. And of course he had an excuse. And I was like, I don't want an excuse. I was like, I'm just telling you feelings that have been inside of me for a long time, and I have to get this off. And you know, when we, you know, after sitting there for an hour going back and forth of certain things we wanted to talk about, we were able to kind of breathe and almost feel like we had like 50-pound weights just taken off our shoulders. And I was like, wow. I was like, this is a easier way of living. It's so much more simpler, just opening up and communicating. And I make the joke that I learned to communicate at 32, but I guess I'd rather learn than never learn how to communicate. So it's been really, really great for our relationship to be able to have sort of like talking boundaries that we use, and when we're trying to get certain points across that help us have an adult conversation.
Are you guys close today?
Closer,
yeah.
You know, I think it's still kind of on my terms of how much interaction I want, just because it really wasn't there for 20 plus years. You know, I could probably say I saw him half a dozen times in 20 years. And so, you know, I've been able to let that go. And now it's just going to be on my terms to be able to build whatever relationship I want with him. And he has seen his first grandson, and he hasn't yet met Beckett.
So
it's a process. You know?
That's wonderful. Your sister says you're a lot like your father. She said you're both bullheaded, you're both intense.
Probably he probably gave me a bunch of good things to help me get through some of the struggles that I had in the pool, and kind of helped me get to where I was. You know, I always said I dreamt of having like a white picket fence with family dinners and all of us being together as a family, and I never had that. But I don't know if I would have had it, if I would have been able to have the career that I did. So, you know, frustrating, but obviously very fortunate with how everything turned out.
What do you think is I want to go back to Bob for a second, because he's had such an influence on your life. What do you think, if you had to say 3 things you pulled from Bob that you'll retain the rest of your life? They didn't just affect you as a swimmer, they definitely affected you as a swimmer, affected your life. Are there 2 or 3 that have come up that stuck for you? Can you remember sometimes you said something where it was an aha for you and you went...
I think one of the cool things that he said to me as a very young kid that I'm trying to get back to doing now in the real world, he removed the word can't from my vocabulary.
That's awesome.
And I would always say it.
He just wouldn't let you say it?
Yeah, he basically said, he's like, if you can't do something, if you're saying you can't do something, he's like, why are you here? Like, why are you wasting your time? Do something else, because you've already made the decision up in your mind that you can't do it. So, you know, for me, like, that was something that, you know, kind of helped me to believe that I could do things that other people had never dreamt of or were too afraid to dream of. And you know, I think it's definitely helpful to me as well today with things that I'm trying to do after I'm done swimming and now raising 2 boys. Yeah. So it's, you know, I think that's such a negative word that we can all just take out of our vocabulary, because it's disgusting. Like, it's just, I hate that word.
Words create emotion, and emotion creates your life, right? Your actions from your life.
Right.
That's beautiful.
Riveting insight from Michael Phelps. Having trained and competed in the swimming pool for the vast majority of his life, he made his Olympic debut at the age of 15 years old. That just shows you the dedication he had, and ultimately he mastered his craft. I hope you enjoyed that interview. Now, I just need to tell you one more thing. Tonight on our premier channel, SuperSport 1, you can look forward to some cricket with The Edge. It's a compelling, emotional, tell-all and all-access documentary that follows the rise of England cricket to number 1 in the world and gives us insight to how it all came crashing down. So don't miss it, 8:30 on SuperSport 1.